It is no shock to anyone that grocery prices have been going up since the beginning of the pandemic. Food producers have struggled with shortages, bottlenecks, and transportation, weather, and labor woes, all of which have caused food prices to rise. The end is not in sight. Inflation has been climbing at its highest rate since 2010, and those prices are passed on to consumers. Meat, poultry, fish, and eggs are up 6% over the last year and up almost 16% from prices in 2019 before the pandemic. In this chart by the Washington Post, you can see that meat, poultry, fish, and eggs have gone up most significantly, about 15.7%, while dairy, cereal, bakery, fruits, and veggies have all gone up about 5%. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Cost of Food reports, feeding a family of 4 on a thrifty budget plan has increased from $154.90 in December 2020 to $197.30 in November 2021, which is an increase of over 27% in just 1 year. In times like this, it is super easy to feel powerless, but I'm going to show you today how we can get creative and thrifty with our food budget to feed a family of 4 5 meals for under $30. Last year, I did an extreme budget meals video, which I can link down below, but during that time, I was actually able to do 5 meals for $25, and I was able to include animal proteins. Alas, that was not possible at this time with the inflation. So we are going to do 5 vegetarian meals for under $30 for 4 people. Just a few ground rules before we get started with this challenge. I am going to be shopping at both Aldi and Walmart. It depends on what you're buying, but I honestly find Aldi and Walmart pretty comparable in terms of prices. It just kind of depends what you're looking for. I will be buying all of the ingredients for these 5 meals. They will serve 4 each, and there will be some leftovers. I will be using spices from my spice cabinet, as well as salt and pepper and some oil, and I'm not including those in my budget since I assume that most people have those things at home already. So now onto the fun part, which is the recipes. I definitely think that you can do budget cooking in a very boring way, like beans and rice, rice and beans.
It's going to blow your mind how fun that is.
However, I like to have a lot of flavor in my food and eat a good variety of things. So today we are going to be making some black bean enchiladas with a green enchilada sauce. We're also going to make an authentic Greek salad with feta cheese, some homemade naan bread, and some hummus. I'm also going to be making some no-knead bread and a really delicious broccoli and cheese crustless quiche. I am also sharing a recipe for a super hearty and delicious vegetarian chili. This turned out so good with cheese and sour cream and a little bit of cilantro. And on the side, I've got some budget-friendly, really delicious focaccia bread. And then last but not least, I've got some chilaquiles with eggs. This is traditionally a breakfast or brunch dish, but it's so delicious you can have it for any meal. So all of these and more in today's video. Let's get started. All right, so I'm here at Aldi. I've got my $30 and I've got my list. The reason why I'm going to Aldi first is because I do believe that there are some items I can get cheaper here. Most of the items I've priced at Walmart, and I was able to do that at home, but I'm not able to do that with Aldi because even if I look on the Instacart website, they mark up the prices and they're cheaper in store. So we're gonna go in here. I am going to see what I can get, and then we'll get the remainder at Walmart. So it looks like cilantro is cheaper at Aldi. I priced it at Walmart at 78 cents. And it's 75 cents here. So this block of feta is going to be one of my splurges for this particular set of meals since I am doing vegetarian. This is $2.99 at Aldi. It's actually $2 more than this at Walmart. So that actually worked out better than I thought it was going to. I didn't film a whole lot in the store because it was kind of crowded, but I was able to get sour cream, chickpeas, cilantro, corn tortillas, and a couple of other things cheaper than I could get them at Walmart. So I actually spent $11.75 here at Aldi, which means I have $18.25 left to spend at Walmart. So I think we're in good shape. I might actually have a little bit extra because some of the things were cheaper than I thought they were, but we'll see. If I have a little bit extra, I think I might buy a little bit of extra sour cream, just because there are some things that I want to use it for and kind of make it stretch a little bit. Okay, so the thing about Walmart that Aldi doesn't let you do is buy produce individually. So I am going to pick up 1 lemon here. They're 54 cents. We're going to grab a bag of these black beans. They do have black beans at Aldi, but it's a 2-pound bag, and I only need 1 pound for the recipes that I'm going to make this week. So these are $1.28. We're going to make a couple different bread recipes. So I'm going to grab one of these smaller bags of flour. This is 2 pounds of flour for 94 cents. Walmart also had the best price on active dry yeast. So we're going to be using this for the focaccia and something else, a couple other things I can't remember, but it's 77 cents here. Okay, so here is how everything turned out. I ended up spending $11.75 at Aldi and $17.31 at Walmart for a grand total of $29.06, which is 94 cents below my budget of $30. So actually, I probably could have gone to Hy-Vee and tried to find a poblano pepper, but I had already been to 2 stores at that point and I wasn't about to go to another one. So let me show you everything that I got and what I'm planning on using it for and how much each individual item was. So I got a 1-pound bag of carrots. I got these from Walmart and they are 82 cents per pound. If you need a larger bag, they're actually more cost effective at Aldi, but since I just needed a small bag, I went ahead and got them at Walmart. I also got onions, garlic, and lemon all at Walmart. That was the best price on those. The lemon was 54 cents. The 2 onions that I got were, I believe, just over a pound. That was $1.03. And then I got the largest head of garlic that I could find. That was 60 cents. I decided to get the 3-pack of bell peppers from Aldi. At Walmart, each bell pepper is 80 cents. So I could either get 2 from Walmart for $1.60 or I could get this 3-pack from Aldi for $1.69. So I went ahead and spent the extra 9 cents to get the extra pepper. I did get some cilantro. This is going to be for the enchiladas and also for the chilaquiles. And this was 75 cents at Aldi, a little bit cheaper than Walmart. I also found cucumbers cheaper at Aldi. I got this for 55 cents. I tried to choose the largest one that they had. And these cucumbers are actually 66 cents at Walmart, so they're a little bit cheaper at Aldi. I also got my Roma tomatoes from Aldi as well. These ended up being 55 cents, which I believe this is maybe like 3/4 of a pound. I'm going to be using these in the Greek style salad, and so since I'm going to be putting a lot of other veggies in there, I figured this would be enough for 4 servings. So I thought the corn tortillas were going to be cheaper at Walmart, but they were actually cheaper at Aldi, and they're a really good price. You get a 30-pack for $1.49. So we're going to use these for the enchiladas. We're also going to use some for the chilaquiles, and then we are going to probably maybe use some to make some tortilla chip for the chili as well. We'll see. The feta, like I said, I got this at Aldi. It's $2.99. Kind of a splurge for this, but since I want to make that Greek salad, I decided to spend it. I also got a 1-pound block of Colby and Monterey Jack cheese. I'm going to be shredding this up for the quiche, the chili, and the black bean enchiladas. I was going to buy pre-shredded from Aldi, but it was only 50 cents less, and I actually got 4 ounces more by buying the pound block. What's interesting is that if you're buying the 8-ounce packages of cheese, Aldi is cheaper, but if you want the full pound, it's cheaper to get it at Walmart. The Colby Jack was $3.48. I also got cream cheese. We're going to be using this for probably a little bit of the enchilada sauce, and then I'm also going to make a crustless quiche with broccoli. The cream cheese was $1. I got some eggs. We're going to be using this for the quiche and the chilaquiles. The eggs were $1.28. I actually priced these at Aldi, and the eggs were cheaper at Walmart, only by about maybe 7 cents. But I remember when eggs used to be like 88 cents at Aldi, so they've gone up quite a bit. I also got this small bag of flour. We're going to be using this for quite a few recipes, actually. I'm going to make some homemade naan, some focaccia bread, and also some Knead bread. I looked it up, and I think there's about seven cups of flour in here, so that should be enough for all the recipes. But this is a really good deal for flour, less than $1. I also got some sour cream. This was cheaper than I anticipated. This ended up being $1.29 at Aldi. They used to actually sell this for 99 cents at Aldi, but obviously things have gone up. So I got that there. I was gonna try and get a small container of sour cream if they had it, because I wanted wanted to maybe use a little bit more, but they didn't have any small containers, so we're just gonna have to make do with that. I got some beans. So the original plan was to get a can of pinto beans at Walmart, but I was able to find these Great Northern beans at Aldi for a lot cheaper. They were only 55 cents, so I went ahead and got those. And then I also got the chickpeas from Aldi. Those were 60 cents. And then diced tomatoes, there's a better price on those at Walmart. These are 98 cents each, and they are the larger 28-ounce cans. I'm gonna use one for the chilaquiles, and then I'm also gonna use one for the veggie chili. I did decide to get some olives for the Greek salad, so I got a can of those. They were cheaper at Aldi. They're $1.29. And then this is where I kind of had to make some substitutions. So like I said in the store, I couldn't find poblano peppers, so I went ahead and got this can of diced green chilies. This is 76 cents. I think that will do just fine for what we need it for. And then for the enchilada sauce, I'm actually going to use this salsa verde. This is a mild, and these cans are only 72 cents at Walmart. So you can get 3 of these for $2.16. And we're going to blend this with some sour cream and make the enchilada sauce. I also got some black beans. These are going to be for the black bean enchiladas. Probably have some on the side of the chilaquiles maybe, and then we're also going to use some in the veggie chili. So I'll be cooking these in my Instant Pot. I got some broccoli cuts for the Crustless Quiche. So this is a really good deal. I actually bought these in my last budget video. I'll link that down below. These are 77 cents at Walmart, and there's nothing at Aldi that compares in price to that. And then I also got some yeast. This was cheaper at Walmart. It's 77 cents. And I'm going to be using this for all of the naan and bread recipes I have. So that's everything that I got. Let's start cooking. Okay, so for the broccoli, I'm gonna go ahead and just cook this in the microwave. I want it to be cool before I mix it into the quiche, so I'm just gonna put it in for 5 minutes. All right, so my beans are gonna take a while to cook, but the nice thing about using the Instant Pot is that you don't have to pre-soak them. So I'm gonna put my beans in this colander, and then I'm just gonna rinse them in cold water. And if you ever see a recipe that says rinse and sort beans, what you wanna do is just kind of look through them, rinse them all off, and make sure that there are no pebbles or dirt in there. Okay, so I've got my beans in the Instant Pot. I went ahead and rinsed them and drained them. And I'm gonna add just a couple teaspoons of this veggie base. It's better than bouillon. This is optional. If you don't have this in your pantry, you don't necessarily have to use it, but I always keep either the chicken bouillon, the beef bouillon, or the vegetable. So I'm considering that a pantry staple, but like I said, if you don't have it, go ahead and leave it out. And then I'm gonna put in 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna add 1 bay leaf, and then I'm going to add 6 cups of water. And then I'll probably sprinkle just a little bit of garlic powder in there. Okay, so I am going to cook this on the beans setting, which is high pressure, for 30 minutes. And then after it finishes, I'm gonna let it do a natural pressure release for 20 minutes before I release any of the remaining pressure. Okay, so I'm gonna work on getting some of my produce washed up. So the cilantro we're gonna use for a couple different recipes. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this soaking in my salad spinner. If you guys are new to my channel, I use this all the time. I'll link the one I have down below. I use it to not just wash greens, but all of my produce. So for the broccoli, I want to make sure that it has no extra liquid in it, since I'm going to be putting it in a quiche and I don't want it to be watery. So I'm just going to drain that in the sink here. And there are a couple pieces I feel like that are larger, so I'm just going to snip those up. And shears are a great way to do that. And this is almost cool anyway, so. Okay, I'm gonna wash my peppers and my tomatoes. So I'm just gonna soak those in some cold water. Sometimes if the produce is waxy, I'll put a little bit of white vinegar in there just to kind of try to get that off, but these aren't too bad. Okay, and I do reuse my water when I'm cleaning my produce. So I'm gonna take these out. And then the cucumber, it's not really gonna fit in here, but I'll just kind of soak part of it and then the other part. Okay, so my beans are done. They turned out perfectly. It smells really, really good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drain these and kind of just leave them in a colander to cool. I have to look it up again, I forgot, but I think The article I looked up online says that 1 pound of dried beans usually yields 6 to 7 cups of cooked beans. So we'll see how much we get out of it. Okay, so here are, I guess, how many beans I got out of that pound. I would say it's probably about 6.5 cups of black beans. Just another tip, you can cook these ahead of time and freeze them if you want to save money on canned beans, because obviously dried beans are cheaper. So I'm gonna go ahead and package these up, and then they will be ready for our recipes this week. So I'm also going to go ahead and shred all of my cheese because we're going to use this for several different recipes. So I'm using my food processor with the shredding blade, but you obviously don't have to do this. You can use a box grater as well. Okay, so for the black bean enchiladas, I'm going to use a recipe that I'm kind of adapting out of this America's Test Kitchen vegetarian cookbook. I don't exactly have all of the ingredients that this calls for, but I am going to use this particular method for the enchilada sauce and the filling. So in here, I've got about, I don't know, 1/4 of an onion, 2 garlic cloves. I've got a couple tablespoons of vegetable oil and some cilantro. I also added the other half of the lemon juice that I used for the hummus. It calls for lime juice, but I totally missed that, and I would have barely had enough in my budget as it is. And then 1 teaspoon of sugar. So this is the part where I'm going to improvise. The original recipe calls for canned tomatillos, but my Walmart did not have those, and it specifically said not to use fresh. So I'm using this salsa verde that actually is made from tomatillos. It also has chili peppers, onions, and salt in it. So essentially it's just pureed tomatillo. So I thought this would actually work well, and it was a lot better than buying the same amount of green enchilada sauce. And then the recipe also calls for heavy cream in the blender just to kind of make the sauce a little bit creamy. I don't have that in my budget, so I'm just going to use the rest of the cream cheese from the quiche, and I'm also going to put in a few tablespoons of sour cream. All right, so this is totally an experiment, but I feel like I've cooked enough in my life that I can safely say that this is somehow going to work. So I'm going to blend this up and then taste it just to see if I feel like it needs anything. Don't you love it when you just like shoot from the hip and it turns out delightful? Oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay, so I'm gonna put this into a container. See how much I ended up with. Oh, this is a 4-cup container, so this is quite a bit actually. All right, so I got almost, I would say almost 5 cups of sauce out of that. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the fridge, and then when it's time to make the enchiladas, we'll pull this back out. Some of it is gonna be added to the black bean filling, and then the rest of it will be used as, you know, regular enchilada sauce. Okay, so I'm getting ready to make my black bean enchiladas, and I'm just preparing my corn tortillas here. So I have a skillet, and I've got just a little bit of canola oil in the bottom of there. You can use vegetable oil, olive oil, whatever oil you have on hand, and you just basically want to kind of dunk these in the oil until they are soft and pliable. You do not want them hard and crispy, obviously, or you won't be able to dunk or roll, I'm sorry, the enchiladas, but I'm using my Misen nonstick skillet. Misen is sponsoring today's video. Thank you to them. I've been working with them for so long here on my channel, and I love their product. I have their nonstick skillets. I have a bunch of their stainless pans. I also have their knives. So let me tell you a little bit about them and the discount you guys can get. I always get asked what my favorite brand of nonstick pans are, and this is your answer right here. Misen. I've been working with Misen for a long time here on my YouTube channel, and I love to continue to work with them because they have such awesome kitchen tools and products that I use honestly every single day in my kitchen. Today I am featuring Misen's nonstick pan. If you don't know why it's so awesome, it's because it has a nonstick coating that is 2.5 times more effective than other nonstick pans that cost twice as much. I always get asked in my videos, what nonstick pan would you recommend? And I definitely recommend Misen. I've had 2 of their nonstick pans for a long time now, and they still work fantastic. The other great thing about Misen nonstick pans is that they are induction, gas, and electric stove compatible, and it's also oven safe up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fantastic because you can transfer it right from the stove into an oven if you have a recipe that requires that. Their pans also offer more cooking surface space. Like most 10-inch pans actually only offer 8 inches of cooking space, but Misen designed their pan to have 19% more cooking area than other premium cookware pans. This means you can have more space for your food and less overcrowding. As always, Misen is giving my viewers a discount. If you want to get your own Misen nonstick skillet, you can go to the link in my description box below and use promo code JEN for 20% off your first order. Again, check out the link in my description box and use promo code JEN, that's JEN, for 20% off your first order. I know you guys will love it, and I truly stand behind all of their kitchen products because like I said, I use them every single day and they are fantastic. So don't forget to get your discount at the link in the description box below. Okay, so all of the tortillas are softened, so those are just gonna cool. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make the filling. So I've got half an onion in this same skillet. I just got rid of some of the oil and left about a tablespoon in there. I'm sauteing half an onion that I chopped up fine, and I also minced a clove of garlic, and to that I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of chili powder and then half a teaspoon of coriander, half a teaspoon of cumin. If you don't have coriander, because I know it's not like super common spice, just substitute cumin, it'll all be fine. And then I also took some black beans out of the ones that I cooked. So you'll need about 1.5 cups of black beans, which is technically 1 can if you're using canned. So I left half the black beans whole and half I put in this container, and I just mashed them up. So those are going to be part of the filling as well. And then I'm going to use green chilies instead of poblanos. All right, so I stirred in my spices and garlic, and I'm just going to cook that for not very long, a couple of seconds, just to get the flavor going in the spices. It smells really good. I'm going to add my can of green chilies, and I'm going to add the whole beans and the mashed beans. Okay, so I've got my black bean filling in this bowl here. I'm going to add half a cup of the enchilada sauce that we made, some cilantro, and I'm also going to add just about half a cup of shredded cheese. I want to save most of it for the top. Okay, so I've got my pan here for my enchiladas. I've been liking to line this with parchment paper when I make enchiladas because I find a lot that they stick. So all I have to do is take my corn tortilla and put a little bit of the bean filling. You do want to taste it for seasoning, and then just roll this up and place it in the pan, seam side down, so that they don't come unrolled. And I'm just going to continue that until I've got 12 made, or however many I can make with this. Okay, so here are my black bean enchiladas. So I put the others in a different dish, and I'm gonna bake those separately because I don't like to crowd them too much, or they're very hard to get apart when you're trying to serve them. I'm just gonna add a little bit more cheese over the top, and then I'm gonna bake these covered with foil for 25 minutes at 400 degrees. Okay, so here are my completed enchiladas. I did take the foil off and let them sit for about 5 minutes. That is very important, otherwise they will fall apart when you try to take them out of the pan. So I'm gonna go ahead and serve these up with some sour cream. They smell really, really good. All right, so here's my enchiladas. I did put a little bit of cilantro on the top along with some sour cream. This recipe makes enough for 4 people to have 3 each, so I feel like that's plenty for a dinner. I also have some black beans left over, so I will be using these for the chili, but I feel like if you wanted to put some on the side as well, you'd have enough room to do that in this budget, but highly recommend this recipe. It's really, really good. Okay, so we're gonna make some hummus to go with the homemade naan and the Greek salad that we're gonna have for one meal. I normally make hummus with tahini, however, that would not fit in my budget. It's kind of pricey. So I found a recipe online for hummus without tahini. I'll link all of the recipes I'm using down below. But what I have here in the food processor is just 1 can of chickpeas that I rinsed and drained, and then I've got 1 clove of garlic in there that I crushed. I'm gonna add, this is 2 tablespoons of water and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. You can add more water if you want. We'll see kind of how it turns out. And then I'm gonna add about 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, about half a teaspoon of salt, and some cumin. The recipe calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of cumin. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and process this, and I like my really, really like smooth and processed, but if you don't, you can leave it a little bit chunky. It just kind of depends on your preference. Okay, so I'm gonna scrape down the sides a little bit. I did add a couple more tablespoons of water. Another thing I found too online is that if you have almond butter on hand or cashew butter, you can use that in place of tahini. I have read that you can use peanut peanut butter before, and I've tried that before. I don't prefer the flavor of that, but the recipe I was reading says that you want to do almond butter. That's better because it kind of has more of a neutral flavor, but that's up to you. So let me make sure this is smooth. Okay, so here's my hummus. I put it into a container and added some paprika to the top. So I'm gonna stick this in the fridge until it's time for us to eat this particular meal. I would say this is definitely a smaller portion for 4 people, but we're gonna be having some other things with that meal, so I think it'll be fine. I will say too, with this particular recipe, the hummus does not taste quite as rich as it does when you add tahini to it. That's just the nature of this recipe, because tahini is basically just like a nut butter, except it's made with sesame seeds, so it kind of does give the hummus a little bit more flavor and richness, but still really good. I like the garlic and the lemon and the cumin in there, so I'm gonna stick this in the fridge. Okay, so I'm gonna make some homemade naan bread. I actually priced both like prepared naan and homemade obviously beat the price of like over $2 for a 4-pack of naan. So this is just 2 cups of flour I have in here, and again, I'll have all these recipes linked down below. This is some sugar, yeast, and salt, so I'm gonna add that in there and then just give this a stir. Okay, and then for the wet ingredients, in this cup I've just got some warm water that I'm whisking with 3 tablespoons of sour cream. The original recipe called for yogurt, but obviously I didn't buy that, so I'm substituting sour cream. And then I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I just poured the wet ingredients into here. I'm just gonna stir this until everything comes together. Okay, so here's my dough. I did have to add a couple more tablespoons of flour to it. So one of the things to keep in mind about flour is that every brand of flour has a different protein content, and cheaper flour tends to have a lower protein content, and so you may have to adjust depending on the type of flour you have. I believe this recipe, she said that she tested it with King Arthur flour, which is a higher protein content, but anyway, it'll work fine. So I transferred it to this bowl that I've greased with cooking spray. I'm gonna put a towel over this, let it rise in a warm spot for about 1.5 hours until it's double in size. Okay, so I forgot to mention to you guys, the naan bread recipe actually called for instant dry yeast, which I didn't realize until I read the recipe again, and I have active dry yeast, so I did have to let it rise a little bit longer, just because that type of yeast rises a little bit slower than the instant kind. So I am going to knead this for just a little bit. It needs more flour because it's very, very sticky. Okay, and then you're supposed to cut the dough into 6 equal portions. Okay, so if you've never made naan before, you actually cook it in a skillet, which is kind of fun. So I've got my Misen nonstick skillet over there, which is perfect for this because it's a really nice quality heavy nonstick skillet. And then we're just gonna roll these out, see how the recipe says. About 1/8 of an inch thick, so pretty thin. And then we'll just cook them in a dry skillet until they are done. I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. Okay, so I've just been putting these in the skillet and then just flip it over when it's brown on one side. It looks really, really good. And then I do have a little bit of melted butter here. This part is optional, but the recipe does say brush it with a little bit of melted butter. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I'll just cooking these until they're done, and then we'll assemble the salads and the hummus and everything else. Okay, so I'm gonna put together this authentic or traditional Greek salad recipe. So I've got my cucumber, 3 tomatoes, a green pepper, olives, some feta cheese, and then I've got just like maybe 1/4 of an onion. That recipe actually calls for red onion, but I neglected to get a red onion when I did my grocery shopping, so I'll make this do. And then the recipe also calls for red wine vinegar. I don't have that on hand right now, but if you have that, use that instead. Some olive oil, oregano, and salt. So I'm just gonna get these veggies chopped up and into a bowl. Okay, so I've got all my veggies in here. I did scoop the seeds out of the cucumber just because it's a regular cucumber, not a seedless one. And I always like to do that just to make sure that it doesn't get watery. And then I'm gonna put in about 16 olives, it says, so we'll have some extra olives. We're gonna add 4 tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of vinegar and just a little bit of salt because the feta is pretty salty in and of itself, and I'm just gonna give this a toss. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little bit of oregano. All right, so here is how we're serving this up. So I've got the Greek salad under here, and then I basically just cut the feta into wedges, divided it among 4, drizzled it with some olive oil, put some oregano on it, and then here's the hummus that I made. That's been sitting in the fridge over the last couple of days, so all the flavors have gotten a chance to meld, and then 1.5 pieces of the naan bread. And I would say this is a really delicious, healthy budget meal, and look at all that food. So very cool. Pretty happy with how this one turned out. I have to mention this naan bread too is really, really good. If you've never made homemade naan bread before, highly recommend. It's really good with that hummus. I mean, it does take a little bit of work, but it's delicious. All right, so along with the crustless quiche, I wanted to make some no-knead bread, which is a very cost-effective way to have toast with your crustless quiche in the morning. So I'm going to measure out 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I've just got a large bowl here, and yeah, some of you always like to comment on my yellow Pyrex bowl. It was from my grandma, so I treasure it dearly. So we should have just enough flour in this 2-pound bag to make 1 batch of this no-knead bread, 1 batch of naan bread, and 1 batch of focaccia. We'll see, but I think if I calculated it correctly, that should be about right. Okay, so 3 cups of flour. And then we need 3/4 of a teaspoon of the active dry yeast. That is not a whole packet, so we're gonna have some left. Okay, and then I'm gonna add about 2 teaspoons of salt. And that's it for the dry ingredients. Super simple. I'm gonna use my, if I can find it, my Danish dough whisk to mix that up. And then I've got 1.5 cups of just lukewarm water I'm gonna pour in there. And this will rise for about 6 to 8 hours. So I'm doing this in the morning because we're gonna have this for dinner. But if you're having this for meal for breakfast, you could definitely do it the night before and it would work out great. So once I get this all mixed up, it's just gonna be like a very shaggy dough like that. I'm gonna put a towel over this and let it rise. My oven has a proofing function, so it basically just like keeps it really warm in there, like the perfect temperature for proofing bread. So that's where I'm gonna put it, but if not, you can just put it in like a warm, draft-free place in your kitchen. Okay, so here is my bread dough. It's been rising for about, I would say, 6-7 hours now. I'm gonna turn it out onto this baking sheet I have lined with parchment paper. It's got some flour on it, and then I'm gonna cover it with a towel and let it rise for another hour before we bake it. Okay, so I've preheated my oven to 450 degrees with the Dutch oven in there that I'm gonna bake the bread in. So I'm just gonna place the bread in there, and then you want to cut a slit on the top so that the bread can expand as it bakes. Put the lid on. I'm gonna cook this for 30 minutes covered, and then take the cover off. And cook it for 15 more. Okay, so we're not gonna have the crustless quiche for a meal until tomorrow, but I'm gonna go ahead and assemble it and just pop it in the fridge. So what I did here was I just have, I think this is a 7x11 dish. It's a little bit smaller than a 9x13, but I thought this would be perfect for like 4 portions. And then I'm gonna serve this with some toasted no-knead bread. But I sprayed this with cooking spray, and I just laid the broccoli in the bottom of here, seasoned it with a little bit of salt, and bear with me, I know it's gonna sound weird, but there used to be this cafe here in town that we would go to sometimes, and like I would meet my mom and my sister there for breakfast sometimes, and they had this crustless quiche that had little bits of cream cheese in it. It was so good. I loved getting it there. And then of course they closed, like everything good in this town. But anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see kind of how it goes, but I'm probably gonna use about 6 ounces of this block of cream cheese to scatter throughout my quiche, and then I'm going to pour the egg over that, and it all bakes together. It's really rich and delicious and good. So I'm just gonna use a butter knife to kind of portion this out into small pieces. Okay, so for the eggs, I'm gonna use 4 for the chilaquiles, and then I'm gonna use 8 for the crustless quiche. Okay, I'm gonna add a splash of milk to this, but you don't necessarily have to do that if you don't have any on hand. I'm gonna add some mustard powder because I always think that gives quiche a nice flavor. You could also add just like a squirt of Dijon if you wanted to. I'm gonna add about a half a teaspoon of salt and some pepper. And then I'm gonna add just a couple dashes of hot sauce. Again, optional, but it does give it a little bit of flavor. So I'm just gonna whisk this up. Okay, so I've got my casserole dish here. I'm just gonna pour this egg mixture over as evenly as I can. And then the only other thing to do for this is that before I bake it, I'm just gonna sprinkle a tiny bit of shredded cheddar cheese or Colby Jack cheese on the top, but for now I'm gonna cover this up and stick it in the fridge. All right, so here is our meal. So here is the crustless quiche. I've let this cool just a little bit. I'll probably cut this into 6 pieces, but it does come out of the pan pretty easily. I've made this before, and as long as you spray, you know, the pan with cooking spray, I'm gonna let it cool just a little bit longer. That's that. And then I would say, you know, you could do 4 servings with this or 6. And then here's the no knead bread. You can see that the crust came out really good. And here's what it looks like inside. So you can toast this. I don't think I personally would bother toasting it because it's still a little bit warm. So, you know, maybe just put a little butter on it. But this is definitely a budget yet still delicious meal. Okay, so the last budget meal I'm going to share with you guys is Chilaquiles. And this is in my cookbook on page 64. So if you've never had these before, essentially what you do is you take corn tortilla chips, or I'm going to make my own from the corn tortillas that I bought, and you basically make like a tomato sauce that has garlic, onion, a little bit of cayenne pepper in it, and then you kind of cook the chips in the tomato sauce. I know it sounds weird, but it's actually good. And then you put a fried egg on top, and then you can put like sour cream, cilantro, whatever you want on the top of them, avocado if you have it, if you're not on a budget. So I'm just preheating some canola oil in one of my Mise-en non-stick pans here, and then I have another pan right here, and this is what I'm going to cook the tomato sauce in. So as soon as this gets to temperature, meaning like I can put my corn tortillas in it and it starts bubbling, I'll fry the chips just for a couple minutes on each side until they're golden brown. I'll remove them to a paper towel and then sprinkle them with salt. To make the tomato sauce, I've got my large can of diced tomatoes here, or you'll need 2 smaller cans of diced tomatoes, and I just drain them over a bowl here. So I'm going to put these in the blender along with the vegetable broth. And here's about what you want the chips to look like. You don't want them to get too super brown, and you can just remove them to paper towels, like I said, and sprinkle them with. Okay, so to the tomato and veggie broth mixture, I'm going to add 3 cloves of garlic. The recipe calls for 4, but we only have 3 because #budget. I'm also going to add the rest of the onion that I have, which is probably about 1/4 of a large onion. Okay, so to this I also added some salt and some cayenne pepper, and I'm gonna go ahead and blend this up until it's smooth. Okay, so I've got my other skillet over here with a little bit of olive oil in it. I'm heating this up. I'm gonna pour in the tomato sauce, and we're gonna cook this probably for about 5 to 10 minutes until it heats through and thickens. Okay, so my tomato sauce is bubbling here. I did give it a taste, and it tastes good. I would say if you like things less spicy, I would add less cayenne pepper, but you want to wait until kind of the last minute to add your tortilla chip, because as they sit they'll get soggier, and that's kind of the point of the dish, but you don't want it to get too soggy. Over here I have my remaining 4 eggs that I have left, so I'm gonna go ahead and crack these into my non-stick skillet and cook those. You can leave them runny in the middle if you want, or it's really up to you. By the way, if you're looking for a non-stick pan to cook eggs, this Mise-en non-stick pan is the absolute best. Okay, so I'm going to add the tortilla chips to the tomato sauce, hopefully without spilling it. And I'm just gonna toss these around gently. I will wait for the sauce to soak in a little bit, and then we'll add them to a plate with the eggs on top. All right, so here's our chilaquiles. I topped them with some of the shredded Colby Jack cheese. We had just enough left, and some fried egg and some cilantro, and I'll probably put some cilantro on this as well. But if you've never tried this before, I highly recommend it. It's delicious. It's kind of a different take on breakfast, but you can have it for dinner too. Bon appetit. I'm sorry, Connor's playing with a fidget toy. Okay, so we are going to make vegetarian chili, and with that, I'm going to make some focaccia bread. This is out of my Essential Pantry cookbook that I wrote last year. I'll link it down below if you guys need to get your own copy. But this is a perfect budget side to make for dinner. Why? Because there's like 3 ingredients and they're all super cheap. So in here I've got 3/4 cup of warm water, and then in here I've got 2 1/4 teaspoons of my active dry yeast. I'm just gonna sprinkle this on there. Probably I'll swirl it around with a fork maybe, and then I'll just let it sit for about 5 minutes until the yeast starts to activate with the warm water. So in my food processor here I've got 2 cups of flour, and just to let you guys know, this is how much flour is left after making all 3 of the bread recipes, just enough to roll this out, so that was perfect. And then I've got 1 teaspoon of salt in there. I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. If you don't have olive oil, you could use whatever oil you have on hand. And then I'm just gonna pulse this to combine. I also wanted to mention, if you don't have a food processor, you can totally make this in a regular bowl. Here's my yeast mixture. So I've just let that sit for about 5 minutes. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna turn the food processor on, and then I'm gonna stream in the yeast and the water until it forms a ball, and then process it for about 30 seconds to a minute longer until everything is mixed really well. Okay, so here's my dough. I turn this out onto the counter, and I'm just kind of kneading it until it comes together. It's pretty smooth already, so it should be good to go. And this will rise for just about 1 hour. It doesn't take very long to rise at all. And I have made this recipe so many times. It's super foolproof. If you've never baked with yeast before and you want to try it, this is a really great recipe to start with, just because it's so fail-proof. Okay, so I've got a bowl here that I just put a little bit of oil in the bottom of, and I'm gonna go ahead and kind of grease the bottom of the bowl with the dough and then turn it over like that. And then I'm gonna cover this with a towel, set it in a warm spot, and let it rise. Okay, so for the veggie chili, I'm gonna use this recipe from Cookie and Kate. I am gonna modify it just a little bit to fit our budget theme, but here is what you'll need. I have 3 carrots. The original recipe calls for celery, but that wasn't in the budget, so we're leaving that out. I've got 2 green peppers, some salt and pepper. I've got 1 can of Great Northern beans, or you could use pinto beans. I purchased these because they were cheaper, and some diced tomatoes. I've also got an onion, some garlic cloves. For spices, you'll need chili powder, paprika or smoked paprika, cumin, and oregano, and then 2 cups of water or vegetable broth. And then at the end, she wants you to add in either some citrus juice or some vinegar. I also forgot, we're gonna need 3 cups of the black beans that we cooked previously. Okay, so I've cut up all of my veggies, got those chopped up. I'm gonna saute these until they're soft. Need to add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to here and a little bit of salt. Okay, so now that our veggies are softened, I'm gonna add all of the spices. This is chili powder, cumin, smoked paprika, and oregano, and I'm just gonna toast those for, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add my veggie broth. I'm also gonna add my can of Great Northern beans, diced tomatoes. Okay, so I'm gonna add 3 cups of these black beans. This is a 4-cup or 1-quart container. So, there we go. Okay, I'm also gonna go ahead and add the bay leaf and just give this a stir. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring this to a simmer, and then once it's simmering, I'm gonna keep it covered and cook it for 30 minutes. Okay, so here is our focaccia dough. So you can see that it's risen. I'm gonna go ahead and punch it down and let it rest for 5 minutes while I get my pan ready. Okay, so here is the focaccia bread before you cook it. I always bake this in a pie plate, but if you don't have a pie plate, you can also use like a square baking dish. You can top this with anything you want. Since I'm serving it with chili, I'm just gonna top it with olive oil and salt. If you're wanting like an Italian flavor, you could do like Italian herbs or oregano or something something like that, but I'm just gonna keep this simple. So I have my oven preheating to 425, and I'm just gonna bake this for about 18 to 20 minutes until it is nice and golden brown. Okay, so this has been simmering for about 30 minutes. I turned the heat off. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bay leaf, and then the next step is to puree some of this, and that's what's gonna give it some really good texture. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can transfer a couple of cups to a food processor or a blender and do it that way. I happen to have an immersion blender, so that's the way that I normally like to do this. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. Next, I'm gonna add a couple teaspoons, or maybe just a teaspoon of white wine vinegar. Like I said, you could use citrus juice. That will just help brighten up the taste a little bit. I have a couple of tablespoons of our chopped cilantro here, and I'm gonna add that as well. And the next thing is I'm just gonna add some salt, maybe about half a teaspoon, and give it a taste for some seasoning. Okay, so here is the completed vegetarian chili. Obviously, this doesn't look very pretty in the pot, probably because of the black beans pureed in there, but I tasted it and it's really, really good. Definitely recommend this, being that this makes a pretty large pot. I mean, this is gonna feed at least 4 people, if not more. You're gonna have leftovers probably. The flavor is really good, and I'm not even someone who really, you know, likes vegetarian chili. Like, I normally make my chili with beef, obviously, but it's really good. And here's how the focaccia turned out. So this is definitely more than enough for 4 servings. I kind of just cut it into a wedge here so you could see kind of, you know, how many servings you can get out of it. So you could get 8 of these wedges. So let me plate up a bowl. Is that what we would say? Let me plate some up and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I put some chili in a bowl. I topped it with a little bit of the shredded Colby Jack cheese, some sour cream on top, and some cilantro. So that turned out delicious. And then I've got 2 of the pieces of focaccia bread on the side. So I would say that is a really delicious and highly budget-friendly meal. Yum. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how well we used up everything that I purchased for this budget challenge. So we have a little bit of cilantro left, some corn tortillas left. Now I will say that you could have, if you wanted to, used these extra corn tortillas in the chilaquiles. That recipe makes enough sauce that you can add more chips if you want to. So that's a possibility. Or you could also fry these up and add them to the top of the chili. That would be good too. I've got some carrots left. That would actually go pretty good with the hummus. And then just a few black beans left. Again, I could have put these in the tomato sauce with the chilaquiles as well if I wanted to. And then I've also got just like maybe a 1/4 cup of flour left. So I would say that's pretty good. For less than $30, 5 meals, feeding 4 people. This is all we have left. I'd say we were pretty good stewards of our ingredients.
I really want to thank you guys for joining me on today's video. Hopefully you got some ideas and options for budget meals and shopping for your own family. Don't forget to check out Mizzen. I'll have that link in the description box below to get 20% off your first order. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.